You know, there is an organization right here in Battle Creek that does a lot to secure food protection. It's the International Food Protection Training Institute. Julia Bradsher is the president and chief executive, and she joins us this morning. Good morning, Julia.
Good morning, Richard.
Thanks so much for the time today.
You're very welcome. Glad to be with you.
So some folks might not even realize that the Institute is here. What is it all about, and what's the history?
Yeah, so we're right here in Battle Creek, and we started in 2009. And one of the things that happened back in the mid-2000s, a group of forward-thinking people got together and said, we have this critical mass of people who are in this food production and food safety arena, and we'd like to build from that and try to help with economic development in Battle Creek by creating this institute. And so the W.K. Kellogg Foundation very generously gave us a startup grant to start the organization in 2009. And so we have been helping primarily the U.S. Food and Drug Administration with helping to keep our food supply safe through training and through helping them develop programs in the training area for their inspectors since 2009.
So when you say keep the food supply safe, what does that really entail?
Well, you know, one of the things about our U.S. food supply is that we are probably the most safest food supply in the world. And in spite of that, about 48 million people get sick every year from something they ate. Typically, people call that food poisoning. Mm-hmm. And about 3,000 people die. Wow. And so it's definitely a public health issue. And so what we do is help train inspectors and regulators to ensure that the food supply is safe through their inspection activity.
3,000 people. That's an incredible number.
Yeah, it really is. And it costs the United States about $152 billion a year to address these foodborne illnesses through the medical care.
We presume that those 3,000 statistic are preventable deaths.
Absolutely preventable. Every foodborne illness is a preventable illness.
We're talking with Julia Bradsher. She's the president and chief executive of the International Food Protection Training Institute, which is right here in Battle Creek. We'll pick up where Julia Bradsher is with us, president and chief executive of the International Food Protection Training Institute. So, Julia, you said you work with the FDA and training and so on, training inspectors. How does that work? I mean, do they come to you and say, hey, we need people, and you have a program that's already certified somehow? How does it work?
Well, the main way that we're helping the FDA is we're helping them to develop what we call competencies. And a competency is basically what are the things that an inspector needs to be able to demonstrate they can do, or knowledge that they need in order to do their job. And so we're helping them. It's really their human resources department that we're helping to develop the training for what we call an integrated food safety system. And what that means is that whether you're in Michigan or you're in Alaska, the inspectors that get trained around the country get trained exactly the same way, so that they have competent people doing comparable work, so that it's a very consistent approach.
And that's important in this case.
It is very important, especially now that food moves, all over the world. I mean, we get about 15% of our food imported into the United States, and the other 85% comes, directly from the United States. But even then, it moves so much. Food moves from different parts of the country. So it's very important that we have inspectors that are trained throughout the country properly and, with the right skills so that they can do their job.
Mm-hmm. So how do they get trained? Do they come here and do that, or can they do that from where they are? How does it work?
Well, when we first started, we literally trained thousands of people here in Battle Creek. And one of the things that happened is, as we became more and more involved in training, we started being asked to go to the trainees. So oftentimes we'll go to, another state and put on a training. And then, in fact, the other thing that we do is really we don't provide the training. There are many other providers of training, but we help the FDA make sure that that training is consistent with the framework that we've helped them design.
Sure. Again, back to that consistency thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. There has to be a benchmark, and then you have to follow it, because then you'd have inconsistent training.
Exactly, and that's really what the FDA looks to us to do, is to help them establish what is that benchmark for, what does good look like? What does a great inspector look like? What is it? What are the behaviors that they have? What's the knowledge that they have?
Mm-hmm. So the organization has been growing and growing since its inception, right?
Yeah, we really have, and I have to say that IFPTI is really a success story for economic development in Battle Creek. We started with this seed grant from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, but we have been sustainable with our own projects without any Kellogg Foundation funding for a couple of years, and now we're just growing like crazy. We started out with about 5 employees in 2009, and now we're up to 18, and by the end of the year we expect to be at 25. So we're growing jobs in Battle Creek, which is very exciting.
What kind of jobs are those?
These are professional positions, generally people who have a college degree and people who apply those degrees to things like instructional design. We have people who do training coordination. We have technical people who manage our learning management system, which is our online training portal, and then administrative, secretarial type people. So it's a wide range of positions that we have people here, and I think the positive is that these are professional roles here in Battle Creek.
And when you're looking for folks to fill those roles, are you finding local talent, or do you do a wide cast?
We have, all of our 18 employees, all of them live in Michigan except for one person who's a remote person. And, we're really looking locally in the Battle Creek, Kalamazoo area for people to fill some of the positions that we have open right now.
All right. Julia Bradsher is with us from the International Food Protection Training Institute here in Battle Creek. And in a minute, we'll talk about some of the other ways they're helping as well with food protection. 8:20 right now. National Weather Service says chances for rain. Is with us President and Chief Executive of the International Food Protection Training Institute. We've been talking a little bit about the background, how they connect with the FDA, the growth that they've been undertaking since 2009 here in Battle Creek. And now, of course, you're busy with what's called the Food Safety Modernization Act. What is that about, Julia?
Yeah, so President Obama signed this into law in 2011, and we're just now in the implementation phase. The law, the impact of the law really kicks in this month when the FDA has to implement the final rules to comply with that law. And so what we're doing is I mentioned earlier that we have a learning management system. Mm-hmm. So our role in this, what we call FSMA, is helping to train companies all over the world. Every company that's registered with the FDA has to have a person go through a training that we call the preventive controls training, and they have to go through this training and be designated in that company. And so there are literally thousands of people all over the world that are going to get trained, and they're going to be using our learning management system to make that training happen.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's very exciting because the wonderful thing about it is that the instructors are still going to go out, all over the world and be sort of independent. I mean, there won't be IFPTI employees. They'll be independent trainers, but they're going to use our system to enroll the students and then manage the registration, and then we'll issue a certificate at the end saying that they completed that training.
Wow.
So yeah, it's going to be, we project that there's probably going to be about 20,000 people just this year taking it, and then over the course of the next several years, there could be as many as 400,000 or 500,000 people taking that training.
And it'll never end.
That's right. That's right. And what's exciting about this Food Safety Modernization Act, it's really a law that brought the regulation of food and the expectations in our food supply really to this century. The previous food law that was passed was back in the 1930s, so we really needed to update the laws. And what's happened is that this law requires companies to take more of a preventive approach than a reactive approach.
Sure.
So.
And I imagine that this is getting the attention that it deserves in lots of places, people recognizing what you're doing, maybe even beyond our borders, right?
Yeah, we have started, we've started working internationally. I'm involved in the leadership of what's called the Global Food Safety Partnership that's being led by the World Bank, and it's people from many countries around the world that are concerned about food safety and food safety training, and so we're helping to coordinate and offer training, especially in low and middle income countries where their food supply may not be as safe, and so we're helping to do that all over the world, and it involves the World Bank, the World Health Organization, the UN, and many other organizations that are concerned about global health.
This has potential to just explode with growth.
Yes, it really does, and we're excited because it helps to put Battle Creek on the map once again in a global perspective.
That is for sure.
Yeah.
Well, this is tremendous what you're doing, and we're so glad to have had the opportunity to hear about it. Let's stay in touch so we can keep folks updated as you hit these benchmarks and milestones and growth, and we'll talk more.
Okay, well, thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much. Julia Bradsher is the president and chief executive of the International Food Protection Training Institute here in Battle Creek. 8:28, back with news headlines coming right up.